A few months ago, I stumbled across something on the dark web that I haven't been able to shake. I know how that sounds. Most of the stuff people claim to find there is either fake or exaggerated. Red rooms, hitmen for hire, the usual nonsense. But this was different. It wasn't trying to scare people. It wasn't even drawing attention to itself. It was just there. I wasn't looking for it. I was on a privacy forum, the kind where people talk about encrypted messaging, government surveillance, and the best ways to stay anonymous online. A user had posted a set of links to leaked documents. The title was vague: New Leaks, Remote Facility Experiments. Most people ignored it. These kinds of posts pop up all the time, usually leading to broken links or some conspiracy theory. But something about it caught my attention. The documents weren't just blurry PDFs with redacted text. They looked real. Official headers, signatures, watermarks from an organization I had never heard of before. Horizon Initiative Research Group, FIRE-G. The files were too detailed to be fake. They included procurement logs, internal emails, reports from field agents. But the most disturbing part was what they described. This wasn't just some secret lab running drug tests. It was an entire island in the South Atlantic. An island that, according to every map and satellite image I checked, did not exist. There were no commercial flights, no records of any settlements, just ocean. Except, according to these documents, thousands of people lived there. The reports described it as an isolation experiment, but the more I read, the more obvious it became. This wasn't voluntary. The people on the island had been born there, raised there, and conditioned to believe the outside world no longer existed. They had no idea they were living a lie. The island had been bought in 2011 through a shell corporation. Over time, an entire fake civilization had been built. Houses, schools, even ruins to make it look like there had been settlements for centuries. The people were taught a completely false history. Their books showed nothing but open water beyond their shores. Their laws forbade questioning the past. And if someone did start asking questions, there was a transcript in the files. An interrogation of a man in his late 30s. He had tried to sail beyond the island's borders. He claimed he saw lights in the distance, maybe a ship, maybe an aircraft. But the officials told him he was imagining things, that his mind was playing tricks on him. At the end of the document, there was a final note. Subject reassigned to renewal program. Further observation needed. There was no explanation of what that meant. The leak included coordinates. I checked. There was nothing, just open ocean. No satellite images, no mention of the island anywhere. And then I found the video. It was low resolution, black and white, clearly recorded from a hidden camera. It showed a town square, simple stone buildings, dirt roads. A group of people stood in front of a raised platform. A man in a uniform was speaking. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed, as he reminded the crowd that they were the lucky ones, that the outside world was gone, that this island was all that remained. No one reacted, no one objected. They just stood there, nodding like they had heard this speech 100 times before. I watched it twice. I wanted to believe it was fake, but I didn't. I told myself to let it go. It was just another deep web rabbit hole, right? One of those things you stumble across, feel disturbed by for a while, and then move on. There was nothing I could do about it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I tried to push it out of my mind, the more it gnawed at me. Thousands of people trapped on an island, living in a world built on lies. No knowledge of modern history, no understanding of the outside. How easy had it been for a private organization to erase an island and control an entire society? I needed to know more. I went back to the original forum where I found the leak. The post was still there, but the user who uploaded it hadn't been active since. I checked their post history. Nothing unusual. Just discussions about VPNs, encrypted messaging, the usual. Nothing that hinted at why they had access to these files or where they got them. I wasn't the only one interested. Other users were debating whether the documents were real. Some tried running reverse image searches on the leaked photos. No matches, no archives. That meant one of two things. The images were completely fabricated, unlikely given the level of detail, or they were real and they had never been on the internet before. I started digging into the companies mentioned in the leak. Most were generic shell corporations, the kind that only exist on paper, but one name stood out: Atlantic Strategic Development. A quick search gave me nothing. No history, no listed employees, just a barely functioning website with a corporate logo and an email address. It looked abandoned, but something about it felt deliberate, like it was just there to exist on record, not to provide any real information. Then I checked the coordinates again. On modern maps, there was nothing but open water, but I started looking through historical satellite images, hoping to find something older. That's when things got weird. Before 2010, there was an island there, Pinewood Island. Then, after 2011, every record of it was gone. No mentions in modern atlases, no references in maritime navigation logs. It wasn't just missing, it had been erased. And if this place had been erased, where did the first generation of residents come from? The ones old enough to remember life before the island? I searched through missing persons reports from the early 2010s SS. At first, nothing stood out. There are thousands of disappearances every year, but then I narrowed my search to entire families who vanished without a trace. That's when I found something disturbing. Between 2010 and 2013, at least 5 families disappeared under strange circumstances. No signs of foul play, no ransom demands, they just left. It was like they packed up and moved somewhere they never told anyone about. One case stood out in particular. Daniel Reeves, his wife, and their 2 kids disappeared from their home in Florida in 2012. Friends described them as normal, no debt, no legal trouble, nothing suspicious. But one detail kept coming up in the reports. Before they vanished, Daniel told people he was starting fresh, that he had found an opportunity somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. No one ever saw them again. At this point, I knew the leak wasn't a hoax. Someone had erased an island from the map. Someone had built an entire civilization from scratch, complete with its own history, its own laws, its own reality. And the scariest part? No one outside of this small dark web forum seemed to know. No news reports, no investigations, no records acknowledging that an entire island had disappeared. This wasn't just a cover-up. This was something bigger, and I still didn't know who was behind it. But I was going to find out. I thought I'd reached a dead end. The documents were chilling. The missing island was disturbing. The vanished families only made things worse. But none of it explained who was behind this or why they were doing it. That changed when I found the second leak. It wasn't posted on the same forum. It wasn't even on the dark web. It was buried in an old cybersecurity subreddit, an abandoned thread that should have been deleted years ago but had somehow slipped through moderation. The post was short. Pinewood Island is real. I worked there. I read it 3 times. The user claimed to be an ex-employee of Horizon Initiative Research Group. According to them, Pinewood Island wasn't just an experiment. It was part of something much larger. Project Homestead, a long-term study on control. The goal was simple: create a civilization that never questions authority. This wasn't some rogue operation run by fringe scientists. It was funded, private investors, government contracts, corporate sponsors, and not just one country, multiple nations. Pinewood Island was a prototype, a test. They wanted to see how long-term isolation and manufactured belief systems could shape human behavior across generations. They were studying obedience. Most employees didn't even know the full truth. They were told they were monitoring a closed community for psychological research. But the ones who figured it out had 2 options: accept a long-term contract with absurdly high pay and total anonymity, leave but sign an airtight NDA that legally prevented them from ever speaking about it. The person writing the post chose the second option. But something changed. Security around the project tightened. Employees who started asking questions began disappearing. That's why they broke their NDA. They had to get this information out. Then came the part that still haunts me. The people on the island weren't just isolated. They weren't just being lied to. They were being conditioned to fear the outside world. The island's authorities broadcast fake news reports about the destruction of civilization. Staged emergency announcements played on public screens in the town square. New biological threat confirmed. Death toll surpasses 90%. No surviving governments remain. Pinewood Island is the last safe place. Every few years, the town was warned of scavengers, survivors from the dead world who had gone insane. The residents were told to stay inside, never make contact, but the whistleblower hinted at something worse. The scavengers weren't actors. They weren't part of the experiment. They were real people, outsiders who had found the island by accident, and none of them ever made it back. The post ended abruptly. No follow-up, no further explanation. The account was deleted. I stared at the screen. I had gone from reading a leaked document to uncovering what felt like the biggest secret in modern history, and yet I couldn't find a single public record of Pinewood Island. Not one. I knew this wasn't just an abandoned social experiment. Somebody was still running it, still funding it, still controlling it, but why? That's when I realized this wasn't an experiment anymore. It was a blueprint, a proof of concept. Somewhere, someone was perfecting a method to control an entire society. And soon, it wouldn't just be an island. It would be everywhere. I wasn't looking for anything in particular that night. Just another aimless deep dive into the internet, the kind where you start watching YouTube documentaries about missing people and end up scrolling conspiracy threads at 3 a.m., half wondering if you should just go to bed. That's when I saw it. A comment buried under a post about luxury fashion brands, of all things. It was vague, almost like an inside joke. If you know, you know. Red shoes aren't just fashion. Look deeper. That was it. No explanation, no follow-up. I don't know why it stuck with me. Maybe because I'd seen those ridiculous bright red leather shoes before, the kind billionaires and A-list celebrities wear, always out of place, almost like a uniform. A quick search pulled up the usual. Fashion articles, paparazzi shots of CEOs and Hollywood elites, red loafers shining like a signature. But after scrolling for a while, I found something else. An old, half-dead forum. The kind that hadn't been updated in over a decade. Dark background, neon green text. The post title, Red Shoes, More Than Just a Statement. It was a mix of speculation and unsettling claims. It mentioned historical paintings, secret societies, and how certain luxury goods were made from real organic materials, if you know what I mean. But the part that made my stomach tighten was at the bottom, a link, an Onion address. If you don't know, .onion links don't work on normal browsers. They exist on the dark web. You need Tor to access them. I hesitated. I had explored the dark web before, forums, data leaks, black markets. But this? Something about it felt different. I copied the link and opened it. The page that loaded was minimalist. No images, no branding. Just a single question at the top. Do you understand the cost of luxury? Below it, a password field. I had no clue what to type, but I went back to the forum post. One of the replies mentioned an old Latin phrase, veritas pretium habet. Truth has a price. I typed it in. The page refreshed. A list of links appeared. Most were nonsense, a jumble of letters and numbers, but one stood out. Red Shoes Club, verified clients only. I clicked. This time, the page looked polished, like an exclusive boutique's website, but stripped of logos. There were categories: Heritage Collection, Exclusive Bespoke Legacy Series. I clicked one. It led to a product listing. A single pair of red leather loafers, no price, just a description. Handcrafted from the softest, most exclusive leather in the world, a legacy of tradition passed down through generations, available only to those who understand true luxury. Below it, a button, request consultation. I didn't click. I went back to the home page looking for more. That's when I saw a section labeled History. This wasn't a product page. It was a series of stories. One was about an 18th century nobleman who owned a pair of red shoes. Another about a Hollywood actor from the 1950s who had a custom pair made before mysteriously disappearing from public life. But the last one, it was titled Tradition and Craftsmanship. The way it was written felt reverent, like the author truly believed in what they were saying. It talked about how true luxury isn't about price. It's about exclusivity, and then it got worse. It described the process of selecting the right materials, how they had to be prepared properly, how they required the perfect texture. It never said it outright, but the implication was clear. These weren't just leather shoes. They were made from something else. I kept scrolling. That's when I found the image. An old, grainy, black and white photograph. A group of men in suits standing around a long wooden table. At the center of the table, a single pair of red leather shoes. Bright, polished, almost glowing. The caption underneath, Rome 1933. A tradition reserved for those who truly understand. I closed the tab. I don't know why, but something about it felt too real. Not like a conspiracy theory, not like an urban legend, like something the world already knows but refuses to acknowledge. I told myself it was nothing, just another dark web curiosity, but even now I can't stop thinking about that page, the way it was designed, the way it talked about tradition. Because here's the thing about luxury, it's not just about money, it's about power. And those red shoes, they aren't just fashion. I told myself to forget about it, but a few days later I saw something that made my stomach tighten. A Hollywood actor on a late-night talk show, laughing, joking, wearing bright red leather shoes. The host teased him about his bold fashion choice. The actor smirked and said, "Once you wear a pair of these, you never go back." It wasn't a coincidence. That night, I went back on tour. The website had changed, a new section. Exclusive experiences, by invitation only, no products, just a single email address. I sent a message. I'm interested in learning more. How does one qualify? An hour later, a reply. Potential clients must undergo a consultation. Are you available for an interview? Attached, a video call appointment. I hesitated, then I clicked confirm. The next night, I joined the call. No camera, no mic, just listening. A man's voice, smooth, controlled. "We don't open our doors to just anyone. Tell me, what brings you here?" I lied. "I appreciate fine craftsmanship. I heard about your collection through a private network." A pause, then a quiet chuckle. "Craftsmanship, a good answer, but we both know it's more than that, don't we?" I swallowed. "Exclusivity is key." Silence. Then he continued, "We select clientele based on status, influence, discretion. Tell me, do you believe luxury is simply about wealth?" "No," I said, "it's about access." Another pause, then a faint click. A new page appeared. Exclusive client registration level 1. At the bottom, a section, referral code. "One does not simply buy their way in," the man said, "must be chosen or prove themselves worthy." Then the call ended. I had no referral, no way forward. Then an email arrived. No subject, no sender, just a single sentence. "You're asking the right questions, but are you willing to go further?" And a link. I clicked. A live stream. A dark room, a long wooden table, at the center a pair of red leather shoes, and beneath them a handwritten note. "Luxury has a cost. Are you ready to pay?" The stream cut off. I shut my laptop. I wasn't just watching anymore, I was inside. I didn't sleep that night. The moment the stream ended, I shut my laptop and just sat there, staring at the screen. Luxury has a cost. Are you ready to pay? I should have walked away. Instead, I did the opposite. I replied to the email with just 3 words: "I want in." A few hours later, a new message arrived. No text, no subject, just an attachment, a PDF invitation. It looked like something sent to billionaires, sleek design, embossed gold lettering, an evening of exclusivity. No date, no address, just a .onion link. I opened it. The page that loaded had only a countdown timer. Next event begins in 2:47:12. Beneath it, a line of text. Verified guests only. Bidding begins upon entry. Bidding? For what? I had no account. But in the corner, I noticed a small option. Guest access. I clicked. The page refreshed. A live feed appeared. A long, dimly lit room. A glass table. Around it, 6 people, dressed in tailored suits, elegant gowns, expensive watches. The kind of wealth that doesn't need to be announced. At the head of the table, a man stood, calm and composed. "Lot number 4, he said. A truly rare opportunity, the camera panned. A pair of red leather loafers sat on a velvet cushion. No price, no description, just silent nods. Then the numbers started climbing. $40,000, $75,000, $120,000. They weren't just buying shoes, they were buying something else. Then something changed. The man at the table lowered his voice. "Our final offer of the evening is reserved for those truly committed to tradition." There was no item on display this time, just empty space. A hush fell over the room. Then one person raised a placard. No number appeared on the screen. The man at the head of the table smiled. A fine choice. "Welcome to the legacy." The feed ended. I sat there, frozen. This wasn't just about fashion. This was something else. A network, a club, a society built on something deeper than money. And now I had a feeling I had stepped too close. An hour later, a second email arrived. This time it had only one line of text. "Your presence has been acknowledged. Await further notice." I shut my laptop. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt watched, because whatever this was, I wasn't just looking in anymore. I was standing at the door, and I had a feeling that, sooner or later, it was going to open.